Withum's video series, The Alternative Route. Today we're picking up with Daniel Austin of AIMA, as well as Joe Cassano, partner at Withum. Thank you both for joining us today.
Thanks, Colleen. Happy to be here.
Thank you, Colleen.
So to kick things off today, Daniel, now that the private fund rules have been finalized, can you tell us a little bit about what you're seeing and hearing at AIMA with respect to the new rules?
Certainly. I think a lot of folks in the industry are still processing the final rule and its practical implications and what steps need to be taken to comply with the very extensive final rules that the SEC adopted in August. At AIMA, we've put together two summaries of the final rules, one for registered investment advisors and then another one separately for exempt advisors. We're also planning a series of webinars that delve into specific topics on the 6 parts of the rule and offering practical tips on where the challenges will lie. We'll also be doing a series of podcasts on more in-depth specific aspects of the final rule. And then later on, hopefully in the coming weeks, we'll be putting together a full implementation guide and hosting various working group calls to allow interested members to discuss compliance matters with peers. And I think although the coalition of 6 associations, which includes AIMA, has filed suit challenging the final rules, there's no guarantee that final adjudication will occur prior to the first compliance date, which is next September for large advisors for certain aspects of the final rule. So we're advising industry and certainly our members to prepare accordingly as if the rule will be, go into effect and compliance dates will be what they've proposed.
Joe, what have you been discussing with your clients as far as what they need to be thinking about and need to be aware of under the new rules?
Yeah, from our perspective, most of the questions and comments we've had with our clients is around the surprise exam and as well as quarterly reporting. The additional costs associated will be burdensome, many around the custody rule with SPVs. The quarterly reporting discussions have been how is it going to be consistent, who's going to be responsible as far as fund administrators, the additional reporting and timelines to be met. So those are the 2 main areas that clients have concerns with. I think there will be cost, and we are suggesting our clients proceed as if the rules are final and hit those dates as well.
That makes sense. And Daniel, over the last month or so, there's been even more activity with respect to new regulations beyond even the private funds rule. What are some of the other rules for compliance that are on your radar right now?
So I think speaking from an AIMA perspective and our hedge fund members, I think the proposed amendments to the definition of securities dealer are at the very top of the list of most concerning rules. I really think that rule, of course, it would come with compliance costs and the like, but we really think it's existential for many commonly used hedge fund strategies. The SEC is essentially saying in that rule that customers of dealers will be required to register as dealers themselves based on how much and how frequently they trade, which totally contravenes the definition in the Exchange Act, the statutory history behind the Exchange Act, and of course what the term securities dealer has come to mean for the past 89 years since the Exchange Act was adopted in 1934. So that one, we're waiting to see if and when a final rule comes out that adopts changes there. Hopefully that rule doesn't ultimately come to fruition. We've been advocating very strongly against it, as well as other industry groups. Last week, we saw 3 rules that were finalized out of the SEC. The first was on last Wednesday. We're recording this in October, so this is mid-October, just for those on watching. So it was the beneficial ownership rule, changes to 13D and G. And that really caught everybody kind of by surprise because it came out seriatim, which means there was not an open meeting to announce that the final rule had been adopted where the commission considers the final rule. So that came out. We kind of welcomed some of the changes in that final rule. For example, removing the requirement to consider certain swaps as part of the beneficial ownership calculus. And then also the redefined definition of what it means to be a group was also removed. They've replaced both of those aspects in the final rule with guidance. I think there are going to be some facts and circumstances based concerns around that guidance. So we'll see how that rule plays out in practice as we dig further into it and certainly chat with our members about it. That rule also shortens the deadline for 13D filings from 10 days to 5 days. We disagree with the justifications the commission's relied upon to make that change. They point to information asymmetries and then advancements in technology since the Williams Act. We don't think that those are sufficient on their own without some market event to really justify shortening the filing window for 13D from 10 days to 5 days. So that same week, we saw, later in the week, we saw the SEC finalize rules for short sales and securities lending. So these were two separate rules. The first on short sales would require institutional investment managers to file a new form show with the commission that if they meet or exceed certain new reporting thresholds for short sales for their short positions. That rule, they will aggregate reported data and disclose that to the public on about a month lag from when that data is submitted to the commission, which is a result that we strongly advocated for because we have seen how attributed disclosure in the EU, for example, can lead to many negative market effects. So we welcome the decision there to aggregate reported positions prior to publication. The securities lending rule is a new reporting rule as well that requires certain covered persons to report covered securities loans to FINRA by the end of the day that loan is affected or modified. And so that's a slight change from the proposed rule that would have required reporting every 15 minutes. So that's quite a change in what from the proposed rule. I think unfortunately there, from our perspective, and this was something we advocated for in our comment letter, was that the rule be limited to what's called the wholesale segment of the securities lending market, and focus on that segment of the market, excluding what's called the retail segment of the market. So by including what's retail, kind of a misnomer in a bit, but it's the rule will effectively capture loans that are used for short sales are required to be reported, but the final rule does not itself require covered persons to report the short sale. So there is kind of some overlap with the separate short sale reporting rule and when those particular transactions will be reported to a regulator and disclosed to the public. So those are just a few that we've seen and are looking forward to.
So thank you for that. Certainly a lot going on. And I appreciate you both, Daniel and Joe, for joining us today and sharing your insights on these issues.
Great. Thanks, Colleen.